you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from your side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Seat 36C at around flight level 260, somewhere over the Garden State, heading for Boston's Logan Airport. I say around and somewhere because although I'm technically the captain of this flight, after a quick trip to the bathroom, the cockpit door jammed and I can't get back in. But as they say, every cloud, and my co-pilot seems to be flying through a lot of them, has a silver lining. At least I get to record my podcast in the air. Although, being right in the back, some of you may hear some of the whooshing noises from the lavatory facilities a little bit more loudly. But, well, see what I mean? Before we continue, though, here are 3 Acme flight attendants to sing the Java Jive, to introduce my talk about coffee, the Coffee Fund. And this week is a very important topic because since I'm not in the cockpit, I'm not getting paid for the last half of this flight.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 154.
Flight 209er, you're clear for takeoff.
Roger.
LA to 123.9.
Roger. Request connected.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from my side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building. In this episode, TransAsia 235, a Malaysia 370 and AirAsia 8501 update. The U.S. Air Force picks the 747-8 to replace the current Air Force One. More on the Cirrus SR22 ditching, and, of course, your great feedback. So, get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions, electronic devices powered on. Flight 154 is ready for pushback. Hello again, and welcome to the 154th episode of the Airline Pilot Guy Show. And I had a little fun at the very beginning there, because I don't know what's going on now. Something is happening with my iPad. Oh well. Had a little fun there. That was courtesy of Ray Williams, my neighbor to the north in Alpharetta, and do appreciate the writing. Hope I did it justice, Mr. Williams. And anyway, he sent that to me as part of some feedback, of course, related to the pilot for a major U.S. legacy carrier last week locking himself out of the out of the cockpit. And we'll talk about that when we get to the feedback portion of the show. Of course, we need to start off. Well, before I do, let me catch you up. It's Thursday of this week. I left on a trip on Monday, and it was an interesting trip, one that I don't normally do. Normally I fly a 3 or 4 day trip, and I fly every day. Every day has a duty period, usually 2 to 3 legs per day. That's kind of normal for me. Although I will be doing a little bit different trip at the end of this month as well, a 5-day trip. I'll talk more about that later. But this one on Monday left a little bit later in the morning and arrived into the layover city, which was Augusta, Georgia, at around a little after 8 o'clock. And then we were there all day Tuesday, and then we didn't leave until Wednesday morning. And I'm thinking, perfect. This will be a perfect opportunity for me to record the show and get it all edited and just everything finished for the week. Now, I normally try to issue these shows on Friday. So anyway, I started doing some work on the show, some research on some of the questions that you ask, and some other details, and then took a couple breaks, went for a walk, went out to eat lunch. I didn't get up really early either. That was nice, being able to sleep a little bit longer than normal. And yeah, you know it. I finally, when I got to the point where I was ready to push the record button, I just I was out of energy and time. So I thought, no problem. It's only Tuesday. I'm home tomorrow afternoon. Maybe I can do it tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, which was yesterday. That didn't happen, of course, and so here we are on Thursday, and I'm off, at least scheduled to be off until Tuesday of next week when I leave on a 4-day trip. All right, so that is what happened, and I'm kind of glad now that I didn't record the show on Tuesday, because it wasn't until, was it Tuesday or was it, I think it was like Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, we learned about the TransAsia ATR 72 crash in Taipei. So it's kind of a good thing I didn't record the show when I was planning to. So there you go. You're all caught up. And by the way, Augusta, Georgia, I don't know if I've ever laid over there. And if I have, it's been a very, very long time. A very nice hotel, a Marriott, located right downtown on the Savannah River. And it's kind of a neat town. It was really nice weather, a little chilly, but it was beautiful, clear skies, blue skies. And anyway, so there you have it. Now, I have some corrections to make. Oh, one that I didn't write down here, but I just remembered, was I think I inappropriately or wrongly attributed to Ben Granucci the title or job of being a dispatcher or a dispatcher for an airline, and I think that was actually Phil Durner. Of course, now I'm wondering myself if I'm right about that. I didn't double check that, but I think that I may have misappropriated or conferred the title of dispatcher on Ben Granucci, and I don't believe that he is. So just wanted to set that straight. The other thing is, I kind of talked about some of the gifts that I've been receiving over the last several months, one of which is a book called The Band of Brothers, written by Ernest Gann, and I attributed that to Tim Van Ram. And Tim wrote in and said, you know what? You mentioned on episode 153 that I sent you a book, Band of Brothers. To the best of my recollection, I did not send it. I think the credit goes to someone else. And, of course, that someone else is Ray Williams. And I contacted Ray and said, hey, I'm sorry that I attributed the gift to someone else. And he said, that's okay. It doesn't matter to me. Don't even worry about correcting it. And but I still feel bad, so I felt like I was obligated. At least I would have felt bad if I hadn't tried to correct that. So thank you, Ray Williams, for the book, and of course I still have not started reading it. You'll remember that Tim sent me the round to it, so that I can get around to it on the swag. Speaking of swag, that's the way I pronounce it. I know I've heard it pronounced schwag. I think Sport Pilot Dave wrote in and said, the way you pronounce it is schwag. And he said, well, at least that's the way I pronounce it. And so I did some research on that and found from the Urban Dictionary, the most used word in the whole... Oh, I can't read that. Well, the Urban Dictionary is not rated G. It's not family friendly, so let me put it that way. But they have a definition, which is not the definition that I was looking for, and nor the pronunciation. So let's see. The Wikipedia had an article about it, and it's used in many different ways, some nice and some not so nice. The way I was referring to it was as a promotional device or promotional gear, stuff we all get. I've always used for the acronym for SWAG. So turns out that if you go to acronymfinder.com/swag, wow, you find all kinds of different things. Scientific wild ass guess, stuff we all get. Hey, number 2, that's the one that I always use, or that's the way I always think about it. Special warfare group in the Philippine Navy. Let's see, sold without a guarantee. Southern whippets and gaze hounds. What's a gaze hound? Shockwave generator. Anyway, there's a list of probably 50 things that swag, or more, that swag means. So check it out yourself if you want. Again, that's acronymfinder.com, swag. So again, I've heard people pronounce it swag. But you know, it's not spelled SCHWAG, so it's spelled SWAG, and I like to call it swag. So there you go. Let's see, some other administrative details here. Let's see. Oh, Tim went on to say, also, I wanted to mention that on the last episode of APG, one of your AP fellows said he was having difficulty getting a ringtone into his Android phone. I, too, am thus challenged as I can't seem to do it on my iPhone 6. I looked at YouTube and the how-to websites. I was successful in changing the file to the appropriate type, but that was as far as I got. I mean, how hard can this be? I wish there was a 12-year-old kid nearby to finish this off for me. I really want, quote, the good, the bad, and the ugly to play when I have an incoming call. Tim. Well, Tim, good news. Now, I think there are some free ways to do this, but if you want to spend a little bit of cash, I highly recommend, although I haven't used this myself, but it's from the same company that makes the software that I use for my sound playing, my sound files, Ambrosia Software. And they're a great Macintosh-based and iOS-based software developer. And they have something called iToner. Let me see if I can find the page here. iToner 3, and it is $2.99 on the iOS App Store. So again, or is it just? Yeah, I think it's the iOS Store. No, maybe it's just the regular Macintosh App Store. I don't know if you have a Mac computer or not. If you do, you should check it out. It's they make great software. iToner 3 allows you to take any audio clip and edit it to make the perfect ringtone or text tone for your iPhone and iPad. Simply drag and drop your audio files on iToner's window, edit them as you please, and then it enables you to quickly create custom ringtones and transfer them to your iPhone or iPad with ease, without modifying, hacking, or having to reset your iPhone. So it even supports importing audio from QuickTime movies. No hacks. No per ringtone fees. So anyway, it looks like the editing aspect of this software is the same kind of editing module that they put into this soundboard software that I use. So if you are a Mac user out there, I highly recommend their software. It's really good, and it's only $2.99 on the App Store, not the iOS Store, but the Macintosh App Store. Later in today's show, I will read some feedback from someone else with some links on how you can make stuff into ringtones for your phone, whether it be an Android phone or an iOS device. So stay tuned for that. And finally, we have the Coffee Fund. All right. The Airline Pilot Guy Coffee Fund is a way for you to help support me and the Airline Pilot Guy show. And you can do that a couple different ways. There are, the classic way via PayPal. If you want to make a one-time donation or perhaps even a recurring donation, you can do that. And the other way is a company, a service called Patreon. That's patreon.com/airlinepilotguy. And there, it's kind of like a virtual tip jar. So you can kind of elect to give a certain amount per episode. I usually do 4 episodes a month, sometimes 5, depending on the month. And after you do that, you become a patron of the show. And no worries if you decide to donate a certain amount per episode and you're afraid that I'm going to publish 15 episodes in that month. You can set a maximum amount to donate per month. So there's no fear of me cleaning out your your account. At least not yet. Just kidding. So, again, set aside or come up with an idea of like $1 per episode, and then say, okay, but no more than $5 per month, or no more than $4 per month. Something to remember. Don't pledge $20 and then put your maximum amount for the month, $20, because then that would really be what? $5 per episode per month. So think about it that way. Anyway, thank you everyone who has contributed to the fund, and as of a couple days ago, this may not be completely up to date now that I'm thinking about it, via the PayPal method, we have Philip Biggin and Philip Martinsky, and via Patreon, we have new patrons Elaine Zaranelli and Michael Clark. Again, if you want to learn more about the airlinepilotguy.com coffee fund, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee.
I take 'em a slow, waiter, percolator.
Okay, a TransAsia ATR-72 performing Flight 235 from Taipei Songshan to Kinmen, Taiwan, with 53 passengers and 5 crew, departed Songshan's runway 10. Disregard that.
When I say that to the people like it. Mayday, engine going up.
That last transmission from TransAsia Flight 235 stated, Mayday, 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 engine flame out. Left engine flame out, I think, or something like that. Engine flame out. The aircraft reached a maximum altitude of about 1,050 feet, lost height, struck a taxi, hit a Huangdong Boulevard viaduct with its left wing at nearly 90 degrees of bank, and impacted the water of the Keelung River near the Nankang Software Park, coming to rest inverted about 2.9 nautical miles from the end of runway 10. 15 people were rescued alive, 31 occupants were killed, and 12 are still missing and feared trapped inside the remaining wreckage, which is submerged in the river. 2 occupants of the taxi were taken to a hospital with minor injuries. The accident, ATR-72-600, has been in service for less than a year and underwent last regular maintenance on January 26th of this year. The airline conducted an immediate inspection of all engines on their fleet following a directive by Taiwan's Civil Aviation Authority. On February 5th, which is today, the airline reported that the 2 pilots at the controls had 4,914 hours and 6,922 hours total flying experience. An instructor with 16,121 hours total occupied the observer's seat, the jump seat. The crew had signed the flight papers that showed no unusual circumstances. 31 occupants are confirmed dead. We've already talked about that. The examination of the entire ATR fleet under surveillance by Taiwan's Civil Aviation Authority has been completed. Taiwan's ASC have dispatched investigators on site and have opened an investigation. The French BEA, representing the state of manufacturer, dispatched 2 investigators to Taiwan. The Canadian TSB, representing the state of engine manufacturer, the Pratt & Whitney 127, dispatched an accredited representative to Taiwan. Also today, Taiwan's ASC reported that the black boxes have been received in the evening of February 4th. The CVR contains 4 tracks of high-quality recordings for 150 minutes. The flight data recorder recording 750 parameters has also been downloaded. Analysis of the data has already begun, currently synchronizing the recordings. Various investigation groups started their tasks to collect evidence on site, for example, in cooperation with criminal police to establish the first point of impact, establish instrument panel readings, collecting witness statements, obtaining maintenance documents, collecting ATC recordings and statements, collecting weather information. Investigators by BEA and ATR have already arrived, and the investigators from the Canadian TSB are expected to arrive sometime later today. So there you have a little bit about the crash of TransAsia Flight 235. I'm sure we'll learn more details about the crash in the next few days. An update on the AirAsia crash, 8501. The captain of the AirAsia jet that crashed into the sea in December was out of his seat conducting an unusual procedure when his co-pilot apparently lost control, and by the time he returned, it was too late to save the plane. Two people familiar with the investigation said. Let's see. People familiar with the matter said earlier this week that investigators were examining maintenance records of one of the automated systems, the flight augmentation computer, and the way the pilots reacted to any outage. One person familiar with the matter said that the captain had flown on the same plane with the intermittently faulty device days earlier. After trying to reset this device, pilots pulled a circuit breaker to cut its power. People familiar with the matter said it was the Indonesian captain Irianto who took this step rather than his less experienced French co-pilot Remy Plazel, who was flying the plane. Experts say the loss of the flight augmentation computer would not directly alter the trajectory of the aircraft, but would remove flight envelope protection, which prevents a pilot from taking a plane beyond its safety limits, and it requires the crew to fly manually. The decision to cut off the FAC has surprised people following the investigation because the usual procedure for resetting it is to press a button on the overhead panel. Said one A320 pilot, "You can reset the FAC, but to cut all power to it is very unusual. You don't pull the circuit breaker unless it's an absolute emergency. I don't know if there was one in this case, but it is very unusual." It's also significant because to pull the circuit breaker, the captain had to rise from his seat. The circuit breakers are on a wall panel immediately behind the co-pilot, and hard or impossible to reach from a seated position on the left side, where the captain sits, according to two experienced pilots and published diagrams of the cockpit. Shortly afterwards, the plane went into a sharp climb, from which investigators have said it stalled or lost lift. It appears that the co-pilot was surprised or startled by this. Referring to the captain pulling the breakers and basically killing the flight augmentation computer. The co-pilot pulled the plane up, and by the time the captain regained the controls, it was too late, one of the people familiar with the investigation said. Tatang Kurniadi, chief of Indonesia's NTSC, told Reuters there had been no delay in the captain resuming the controls, but declined further comment. Okay, there's your update on the 8501 crash. That seems very significant. Again, we have a case where pilots are pressed into flying an airplane manually and apparently unsuccessful. Again, there may be more to this, of course, but that's what we have for now. Speaking of the Airbus A320, are you a qualified Airbus 320 pilot? Nepal Airlines Corporation, NAC, is looking for some. This was on January 27th. 3 NAC captains sent to France for Airbus A320 pilot training have returned back without completing the program. This means that Nepal Airlines Corporation will face a shortage of pilots to fly the aircraft that is scheduled to be delivered on February 7th. and that's Saturday, just a couple days from now. NAC has sent did send 4 senior pilots and 2 co-pilots for the training on December 29th of 2014. 3 of them aborted the training midway and returned back on Thursday. NAC sources said the captains, quote, found it difficult to abruptly switch from Boeing to Airbus. They've been flying the Boeing 757 for the last several years. Sources said Airbus has significantly revised its pilot training policies, focusing more on flying skills. That's a good thing. This month-long training program costs about $30,000 per pilot. When contacted over the phone, a company spokesman declined to comment, but said it was due to personal issues. The corporation is exploring alternatives. We plan to hire flying crew on a contract basis, and a notice in this regard has been issued. Besides, we are also holding talks with leasing companies to hire pilots if we don't get them here. The corporation recently revised its pilot training manual amid the increasing trend of pilots leaving the training halfway. Earlier, such pilots got the opportunity to complete the training twice or more, but as per the amended manual, pilots returning halfway through the program have to go back and complete their training or courses at their own expense. There we go. So the company will no longer pay for the training if they don't make it through. With the arrival of the new aircraft, NAC will have to manage 5 types of aircraft: a Twin Otter, MA-60, Y-12E, Boeing, and Airbus. Okay, so we have that from Nepal Airlines. And that brings me to this issue. It seems like a lot of serious crashes, accidents occurring in Asia lately. Air safety concerns in Asia have been growing as the region's traffic continues to boom, and in response to a series of tragedies last year, including the December 28th crash of AirAsia Flight 8501, which went down in the Java Sea after taking off from Surabaya, Indonesia, on its way to Singapore. The exact cause of that accident is still unclear. Memories of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, which disappeared nearly a year ago and still hasn't been found, also haunt the region. Taiwan, which has a mature regulatory system and has been actively engaged in international safety efforts for decades, generally isn't considered among the Asian countries that outside safety groups worry about the most. The latest analysis conducted by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, a United Nations agency that sets non-binding safety standards for carriers and regulators, indicates that Asia has at least 3 of the 10 countries around the globe deemed to have the most serious safety shortcomings. Air traffic in Asia has increased rapidly in recent years, making it the world's biggest aviation market. But the growth has been a struggle for some safety regulators, airlines, and governments. There is a huge variety in Asia, said Raymond Benjamin, ICAO's Director General, in an interview at a global air safety conference in Montreal. You have an industry which is booming, but a civil aviation administration which is weak, Mr. Benjamin said of portions of the Asian market. Raising the safety bar is particularly difficult in Asia, partly because of the gap in governmental capabilities between the most advanced aviation powerhouses, such as Singapore, and developing countries, such as Nepal, is more pronounced than other regions. Over the past 5 years, the number of passengers carried annually in the Asia-Pacific region has jumped by 2/3 to more than 1 billion, surpassing Europe and North America, and accounting for 33% of the global total in 2013. The fast expansion of aircraft fleets and the strain on pilot training systems have added to safety risks. There's a chart here that they include in this article from the Wall Street Journal showing the figures all the way back from 2007 to the last year data available, 2013. And sure enough, the Asia-Pacific market has grown the quickest and has the highest traffic globally. In late July, TransAsia Flight 222 heading from Taipei to Penghu, another outlying island, crashed a few minutes before landing in the wake of a passing typhoon, killing 49 people. After that crash, the company set out rules that no TransAsia flights can take off unless visibility is at least 50% above government standards. So, you know, we also saw, if we watched the hearings for the Asiana flight crash at the San Francisco International Airport, that there were some serious questions raised about the training of the South Korean pilots, and this is just seems to be getting worse and worse. And I think the problem is going to continue until something is done about it. You know, I'm not sure what can be done about it, but it's definitely something serious going on worldwide, but especially in Asia. And there are some other areas as well, like Africa. An update on Malaysia 370 on January 29th, about 7 days ago. Malaysia's government officially declared the occurrence of the crash, or the Malaysia 370. They declared the occurrence an accident, thus ruling out malicious activity being involved in the disappearance of the flight. The government argued that all investigations so far have not revealed any evidence that suggests malicious activity involved. So that's your Malaysia 370 update. Speaking of updates, we talked about the Cirrus airframe parachute system deployment by the Cirrus SR22 pilot traveling from the West Coast in California to Hawaii. And this man's name is Lou Morton. And let's see. He released a selfie video of the incident. Lou Morton's facial expression is incredibly calm despite the stressful situation. And through an open door, Morton's video shows the parachute above the airplane moments before it hits the water. In a Good Morning America report, Morton describes how he used his satellite phone to report his emergency, which he described as a malfunction in the fuel system. Whether it was the airplane's fuel system or the system carrying the additional fuel required for the flight from California to Hawaii is unknown. And this sound bite is from a piece from Neil Karlinsky, ABC News.
Watching the incredible video, you might wonder what the pilot of this plane, saved by a built-in parachute and hurtling towards the Pacific Ocean, is doing inside right about now. This morning, in a GMA exclusive, 25-year-old pilot Lou Morton shows us he wasn't praying, he was taking a selfie on the way down with his GoPro. With the door open, you can see the parachute over his head, the life vest around his neck, and the ocean closing in.
It was kind of funny. Right before that, the gentleman on the Coast Guard was like, I do not envy you at all right now.
Morton had been in the air 7 hours from California on his way to Hawaii when he says the plane suffered some kind of malfunction in the fuel system. He called for help on his satellite phone, and then he called his dad.
The hardest part of the flight was making that phone call. At that point, I told him I'm probably going to be ditching in the water.
You tell him you love him?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, it takes on a new meaning when your typical under your phone call conversation is the typical I love you, and then, all right, well, hopefully I'll be able to tell you that again.
So if you want to watch the entire video, I'll have a link to it in the show notes. Morton circled near the cruise ship until, I guess, when he was talking with the Coast Guard, they determined that it would be a while before they could get anybody on scene because it was so far offshore. And so knowing that, they had him fly south toward a cruise ship in the area until, and he circled the cruise ship until it was time to deploy the parachute, which gently guided the airplane to the surface of the water. Once there, Morton pulled out the life raft and waited to be picked up by a crew from the ship. A serious incident that could have ended in tragedy instead concluded as smoothly as anyone could have imagined. So again, look for that video in the show notes. Continuing on with the news, the U.S. Air Force said on Wednesday of last week, it would use Boeing's commercial 747-8 airliner to replace its current fleet of 2 Air Force One presidential aircraft, one of the most visible symbols of the United States. The decision comes a month after Boeing said it would slow production of the 4-engine 747-8 aircraft to 1.3 a month from a 1.5 per month because of declining orders. The Boeing 747-8 is the only aircraft manufactured in the United States that, when fully missioned or missionized, meets the necessary capabilities established to execute the presidential support mission, said Air Force Secretary Deborah James in a statement. Boeing welcomed the Air Force's decision to skip a competition. Of course they welcomed that, and opt for the 747-8, citing its 50-year history of building presidential aircraft. The Air Force said it intended to award a sole source contract to Boeing, but they still must negotiate a contract and the modifications needed to adapt the jet for presidential use. And, of course, the only other candidate for replacing these airplanes was the only other 4-engine large jet manufactured currently, which is the Airbus A380. So it was kind of obvious that the U.S. Air Force would choose a U.S.-made airplane, the Boeing. And I think finally for the news here, this is something that a few of you sent to me, I think via Twitter, perhaps on Facebook, I'm not sure. And it happened, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. And it involved Brooklyn resident Chris O'Leary, who is editor of the Brew York News site. I love that. Brew York, not New York. Let's see. So, hours of delays on a New York-bound Delta flight from Cleveland led 2 passengers getting the entire plane to themselves, with one New Yorker happily live tweeting the desolate departure. Chris O'Leary, editor of the beer news site Brew York, tweeted a smiling selfie from the empty 76-seat plane around 2 p.m. Monday, whichever Monday that was, with an explanation. Quote, "They rebooked everyone but me on another flight to LGA, so I am literally the only person on this plane." And it turns out, looks like they had to return to the gate because another passenger showed up. By the way, this is not Delta Airlines. This is a Delta connection carrier. Just to kind of make this straight to people, not mainline Delta. It was a regional jet, and but still cool. And several of you asked when they tweeted this to me or sent this to me, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever carried only one passenger? And now, it's not completely unheard of, and yes, it has happened to me once in the entire 26-year career flying for a commercial airline, and it was back in the probably late 80s, early 90s when I was a flight engineer. I think I was a flight engineer. Maybe I was a co-pilot at the time. But anyway, it was, many, many years ago. And Acme used to fly from Atlanta up to, or maybe we were out of Cincinnati, I'm not sure. But either Atlanta or Cincinnati, flying or stopping through Albany, New York, on the way to Portland, Maine. And we had, I don't know, a handful of passengers, probably 20 or 30 passengers on that first leg of that flight. But the continuing portion of the flight, the part from Albany, New York to Portland, Maine, there was only one passenger left, a through passenger. And I went back. I must have been a co-pilot. Well, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter what position I was flying at the time. I went back and gave him a personal briefing. So that meant I was probably the flight engineer. And the flight attendants gave him a personal safety briefing, etc. It was kind of fun. As I said, it doesn't happen too often, and that's kind of cool that it happened for Chris. He said that when they went back and got the other guy, the other guy just slept the whole flight. They didn't talk at all. And so, anyway, there you go. The Brooklyn man who flew almost by himself from Cleveland to New York All right, that is enough news. Let's move on, shall we? Hold your ears. It's coming.
Captain, incoming message.
And that was very loud. I did not intend for it to be that loud, and I'm sure that I'll edit it to a lower setting. So, sorry about that. If you're watching the video, the audio people will hear that at a lower volume, lower amplitude. Okay, I gotta make a personal note. That was around 41. Okay. In fact, I think that I'll play that sound clip again at a lower volume. So let me just set this up here.
Captain.
That was too low.
Captain, incoming message.
Okay, the first piece of feedback sent in from Daniel Sanico in Italy, by the way. And he entitled his feedback, Watch Reunited POW and the Last B-26 on YouTube. And he sent me a link to that. And I did. I watched it. And I highly recommend that you watch it too. So the link to that will be in the show notes. This gentleman, a prisoner of war and also a B-26 Marauder pilot, was this I guess it was a company, something Aviation, I forget the name of their company now, arranged for this, the whole thing. They picked up this gentleman who was like 90-something, 91 years old, something like that, flew him out on a nice private jet to Fantasy of Flight Museum, and there they wined him and dined him and gave him a full tour of all the airplanes there, as well as a up-close and personal tour, including getting inside and sitting in the cockpit of the B-26 there. So definitely worth watching. So again, link in the show notes. Devin sent me a link to a YouTube video, and it was very interesting. Here, let me see if I have it queued up here in my tabs. I thought I did. Hang on. Oh, darn it. Nope. It must have disappeared. I had it all set up on Tuesday, but here, let me just click the link, and you can hear some of the sound there. It's a drone or a UAV, and whoever owns this thing has tricked this thing out and set it up so that it has Roman candles or bottle rockets or something flying out of it, and there's a kid with a helmet on being chased by the drone. Anyway, well, that's enough. That's about the first, I don't know, 30% of the video. So if you want to watch it, it's very, very cute. It's fun to watch this UAV being used as a military device, I guess. So thank you, Devin. Dr. Steph wrote in, and she sent me a link to this article from BBC.com, and she says, looks like Aviation Week's Person of the Year is at it again. Let's see. Russian military planes flying near UK airspace caused disruption to civil aviation on Wednesday. I guess that must have been last week, the Foreign Office has said. So the two Russian planes did not enter UK airspace, but the maneuvers were part of an increasing pattern of out-of-area operations by Russia. The planes were, quote, escorted by Royal Air Force jets throughout the time they were in the UK area of interest. The Russian ambassador said the patrols were routine and dismissed any concerns. So that's interesting. If you want to read that article, I'll have it in the show notes as well. Thanks, Dr. Steph. Mark Ross, he's the guy that's always at flight level 330, sent me a link to this, a United flight from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., diverted. It says it made an emergency landing, diverted into Ontario shortly after takeoff from, I believe they took off from Los Angeles International. They were heading to DCA, I believe, or maybe Dulles. Let's see, where does it say? Yeah, they were heading to Dulles International. And the reason they did that was that passengers reported a burning smell on board. And I did a check before I recorded the show and didn't see if they had any updates to that. So I'm not sure what was causing the burning smell, but, on boats or in airplanes, you don't mess around with fire. So something smells like it's burning, it's time to get this thing on the ground. And that is what they did. So thank you, Mark, for sending that. Okay, so I started the show with the little skit that Ray Williams sent to me regarding being locked out of the cockpit. And apparently this was something that was very popular amongst many of you, including Mike Dell. And he said, I'm guessing that had something to do with stresses at altitude and the door worked just fine on the ground. No, it didn't work just fine on the ground. I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's see. Ray also wrote, the plane couldn't have been a mad dog since the co-pilot had to get towed in from the runway because he had only 7 degrees of rudder pedal steering. I think it's actually 6. On the MD, that would have been no problem. With reverse thrust, he could have just gone back and forth doing K-turns, also known as 3-point turns, Y-turns, broken U's, until the nose was pointed where he wanted it to go. So, and then he says, so in my never-ending quest to be of help, I'm providing a possible opening script for your next podcast, and that's what I did at the beginning. So thank you very much, Ray, for that. Again, another Gregory, Dispatch Greg, wrote in, and he says, see, this just proves you only need one pilot, right? Okay, I'm kidding. Don't smack me. And then finally Mark Ross also got in on it, and then his only remark was, whoops. And then Thomas Frundel wrote in, this wasn't you, was it? And he sent a link. And to all of you and to all of you listening right now, no, that was not me. It was an MD-90. It was an Acme Airlines flight. And it was going from, I think, Minneapolis to Las Vegas or Cincinnati to Las Vegas. Anyway, Minneapolis to Las Vegas. And apparently the captain left the cockpit to use the loo, the lav, the bathroom, and the door jammed such that they couldn't open it. And so the co-pilot landed. No big deal, right? We're both fully qualified to fly the airplane. But as Ray mentioned, a little bit of problem once you're on the ground because there's no steering tiller on the right side of the Mad Dog. So very limited steering capability. And unless you get up out of the right seat and get into the left seat and taxi. In this case, it wasn't an emergency like that United 737 flight that diverted into, I believe, Omaha when the captain had a heart attack. And in that case, the co-pilot decided that it was worth taking the risk to move to the other seat and taxi the airplane in so that the captain could get life-saving efforts as soon as possible. But in this case, no emergency. It's just an inconvenience. The captain was not allowed, he couldn't get back in. So I can tell you that Acme did send out some information about that, and turns out that on the Mad Dog 90, there is a D-ring in the hinge that there's like a release thing that allows you to pull inside the cockpit, and you can release the hinges of the door for emergency egress. And apparently one of those little wires with a little D-ring on it was not secured, and it was kind of dangling. And then when the door was closed after the captain left the cockpit. When the door was closed, that little D-ring device got jammed in where the door closes, in the threshold of the door, and that's what jammed it, and they couldn't get it open. And in fact, the only way that they were able to get in, I guess, was a mechanic had to go through one of the windows from outside and come into the cockpit, and I guess had some tools with him and got the door opened up. So we were told now to make sure that those little D-ring wires and whatever are properly stowed so that they don't cause a problem in the future. Okay, enough of that. Mark Van Ram, Tim Van Ram's brother, wrote to me and said, "Hey, I heard you say that you're going to be in Norfolk on the 23rd of February." And he said, how about a meetup? So here you go. Here's the official announcement. There will be just a very, casual, short meetup at the, well, I'm staying at the Norfolk Waterside, Sheraton Waterside in Norfolk. And I believe Mark is up in Newport News, but it's not far. And I probably get to the hotel somewhere around 4:30, 5 o'clock or so. So we'll probably set it up for 5 till, I don't know, 7 or so. I'm not sure exactly how early I have to get up in the morning. Here, let me look at my schedule. That again is the last week of February, the 23rd, which is a Monday. And so we'll plan on, if you're listening and you happen to be in the area of Norfolk, Virginia, Virginia Beach, Newport News, etc., why don't you come out and join us for a beer and probably something light to eat. And let's see, the next morning, I'm going to have about it's a 7:25 departure out of Norfolk, so not too bad, but I don't want to make it too late of a night because I need to get my beauty rest. And so the next day, by the way, the 24th, I'll be arriving early in the day into St. Louis. And I don't know, I'm thinking that I'm going to try to at least do most of the prep work for that week's show while I'm in St. Louis, and perhaps maybe even record it. But I should have time, either during the lunch hour or even, early afternoon or late afternoon, early evening for a meetup in the St. Louis area. So again, if you're interested in meeting up with the Airline Pilot Guy community, why don't you pencil this in on your calendar. Again, St. Louis, the 24th of February, and I'll be staying at the Hyatt at the Arch. And so look for me to give further information as time goes on. Again, right now I'm recording on the 5th, and this is the 24th, so we have about 3 weeks. So no hurry on that. So one of the APG community members, Janelle, suggested that we have some kind of a meetup there. So we'll see how that goes. So there you go. Let's continue with Mark's brother, Tim. He sent me a message saying that for his birthday, which was about a week ago or so, I think, he went up in a Stearman, and he took a picture of it. I'll put that in the show notes. I'm sure he won't mind. It's a picture taken from the cockpit of the Stearman biplane, and they're in a little bit of a bank, and it has a beautiful view of the landscape below over the little hamlet of Petaluma, California, home of Twit.tv Studios, one of my favorite podcast networks. So very cool. He said that they took off. They had lots of takeoff and landings that day. It was a blast. So there you go. We'll put that in the show notes. Devin sent me a link to this really strange video. Or maybe this is Devon, D-E-V-O-N. He said, a V8 bar stool. Wow. wow, all 2 minutes, drive this engine, no car, no brakes, blah, blah, blah. So he said, very cool. So I'll put, if you want to see a motorized bar stool, not sure how practical that is, look for it in the show notes. Lots of links in the show notes today. We already talked about Sport Pilot Dave and his feeling that swag is pronounced swag. Josh in Nashville sent me a quick little piece of feedback. He said, below is a great example of poor media reporting on airline incidents. In the first 90 seconds alone, the volume of misinformation is unconscionable. For example, and he sent me a link to this, and by the time, it was only a few hours after he sent this to me, I went to look for it because I wanted to watch it myself. It was on CNN, and it said the video is no longer available. I guess maybe a bunch of people complained or something, but anyway, in the first 90 seconds, VFR is transcribed as 94. Yeah, VFR 94. JetBlue is transcribed as Deborah. Okay, and the collision alarm, the anchor explains, isn't that just the result of multiple simultaneous transmissions on frequency? It would be comical if it weren't so alarming to the public. And this had to do with an article or a report of a near miss with a plane. And so JetBlue was the airliner involved. And I guess they must have had the ATC video, audio playing in the background. And then, of course, you watch the closed captioning, and you see what, they're translating it to the layperson, so you may understand what they were talking about. And apparently the transcription is full of flagrant errors. And does it surprise me? No, not at all. I wish I had that available to play, but nope, it's gone. All right, it's time for me to take a little break and rest my voice. And this was sent in from Mike Cochran. And let's hear what Mike has to say. Okay, I will do it this way.
Hey, Captain Jeff, it's Mike down here in sunny Florida. Hope all is well with you. I thought I'd drop you a line and give you a little update on me. But before I do, let me tell you a little bit about how I got here. I would have told you the story in person when we met, but somebody else dominated the conversation. No offense to him. I'm just sort of a quiet person. Anyway, when I was in the second grade, my uncle was an officer in the U.S. Navy, and he was stationed on the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga. The Navy had a program called the Tiger Cruise, in which family members could meet the ship at its last port of call, come aboard, and then take the ship back to where it's stationed. So my father, grandfather, and I flew to Spain, and we took the ship back to Mayport Naval Station in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a trip of a lifetime. I wish I was older at the time because I would have appreciated it more, but I can still remember every second of it. It was just awesome. They gave tours of the ship, let us shoot the guns at the garbage that they threw overboard, had an air show and dropped live ordnance, and of course they were launching and recovering planes just about every day. It was just a blast. It was at that time I fell in love with flying. So my plan was to join the Navy, fly jets, and then retire to the airlines. Well, when the time came to join, I didn't meet the visual acuity requirements at the time, and my thinking was, if I cannot fly, I don't want to go in the military. I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt now. I wish I went in even if I couldn't fly. So I kind of fell into law enforcement. It was my second choice of careers, and I love it. There's nothing like driving fast, running after the bad guys, and assisting people who really need it. About 8 years after I started, the city I was working for changed its retirement system. Thus, I would now be eligible to retire at 46 years old. So I got to thinking, what am I going to do after that? The agency I was working for had an aviation unit, and two of my coworkers went out and received their rotorcraft rating and started flying the agency's helicopter. And I thought to myself, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And if I got my helicopter's license, I could start flying, even if it was part-time. And by the time I reached the retirement age, I would have enough hours to go work in the EMS helicopter industry. And I just so happened to be friends with the VP of a helicopter school in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I sat down with the aviation supervisor and I told him of this fantasy of mine, or / plan, and to my surprise, he said, go for it. So I took a month off work, went down to South Florida to Ocean Helicopters, and knocked out my private rating in 1 month. And I'll give a little plug here and say it's an excellent school and I highly recommend you going if anybody out there is thinking about becoming a helicopter pilot. When I finished, I came back and began flying part-time with the agency CFI, and he took me through commercial in a little over a year. Well, shortly after I received my commercial rating, the economy tanked and the city decided to get out of the aviation business since it was so expensive. So here I was, a commercial helicopter pilot with about 300 hours and now nothing to fly. I definitely couldn't afford just to go out and rent a helicopter to build hours, nor did I have the time or license to start instructing. Well, as luck would have it, I found the online posting for a helicopter pilot position at another municipal law enforcement agency in North Florida, and for whatever reason, they did not have an hour requirement, just a commercial helicopter rating. It was probably because the pay was so low. So I had a choice to make: stay at my current agency where I've been for the past 12 years, where I loved the people I was working with, making decent money, the job was stable, or go pursue my dreams of becoming a professional pilot. It's probably one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. Well, I chose the latter, become a pilot, but before I did, I sat down with this new agency to make sure the aviation program there was well funded and stable, and I was assured it was. Well, I made the move, and on day one they said, sit down, we need to talk. The city was in discussions of laying off 15 officers, getting rid of the aviation unit and the mounted unit, and some other assets. And of course, the last ones hired are the first ones fired. Needless to say, I wasn't a happy camper. I was assured by the members of the aviation unit that this discussion comes up every few years, and they doubted the aviation would be closing its doors. Luckily, the city commission voted in a fire assessment fee, and by doing this, it saved the 15 positions in the aviation unit. 2 years went by and I received a phone call from one of the pilots I knew that flew for the sheriff's office in my hometown. He said they had a pilot's position open up, and he wanted to know if I was interested in moving back and flying for them. Well, I still had my house there. I was renting it out at the time. My friends were there. My family was there. I would be making more money, and the biggest incentive, job stability. So it wasn't really a hard decision. Plus they had the plane and would pay for my airplane rating. So off I went. Shortly after getting hired, I began training to fly the plane. The CFI that I'd be working with works next door to our hangar at the county's mosquito control unit and does aerial spraying. I walked into his office, and plastered all over his walls were pictures from his airline flying days. As it turned out, he recently retired from airlines due to age and was now working at mosquito control as a retirement gig because, as he put it, his wife likes to spend a lot of money. He's an excellent instructor and assists me in getting my single-engine airplane, multi-engine airplane, and instrument airplane ratings. And as of 2 days ago, he assisted me in getting my airplane ATP. Insert applause here. Thank you, y'all are too kind. Further, he rekindled my desire to become an airline pilot. That's all I ever really wanted to do. When I was 16, I got my driver's license. The first place I went was to Tampa International to watch the planes and the people. I probably watched the majority of the YouTube videos having to do with airline flying. I go to airliners.net about every day, and then when I found your podcast, I was on cloud 9. So as of right now, it looks like I meet the hiring requirements for the majority of the regional airlines. I've even been to airline pilot job fairs and talking with the recruiters. As long as I meet the minimum requirements, they say I would be a good candidate for a pilot position, even though the majority of my time is in rotorcraft. Needless to say, I'm getting kind of nervous. If I do go to regionals, my pay is going to get cut by more than half, and I would have to sell my house. But on the other hand, I'm single. I have no bills besides my mortgage, and I've saved a little nest egg in the bank that could help supplement my income for the first few years. On the other hand, right now I have job stability, doing well financially. I'm by no means living high on the hog, as you see my car, Captain Jeff. But I'm living comfortably and able to put money away every month. There's a line of people out the door wanting my current job. It's a job I love. It's not even work. I get paid to fly a helicopter and a plane. My boss doesn't ask much of me, just keep the hangar and aircraft clean, answer the phone when it rings, fly when requested if it's safe to do so, and nobody questions my go or no-go decisions. However, if I had the opportunity to go to the airlines and did not take it, I don't want to live the rest of my life wondering what if. So I'm 95% sure I'll be taking the plunge. Hopefully I'll be taking the ATP helicopter check ride here in the next few weeks, just so I can have that in my back pocket for a backup plan. If the airliners don't work out for whatever reason, there are dozens of helicopter jobs around the country that I'm currently qualified for. I've never failed a check ride, and the DPE for my ATP said I did an excellent job. The only criticism he had was I did not physically look at the flight control surfaces when I checked the flight controls prior to takeoff. You probably can't answer this, but I'm hoping somebody in the APG community can. What's the washout rate when it comes to new hire training, and what are the primary causes? I just don't want to get hired somewhere, then not be able to make it through the training program, and then be out of a job. I would love to be put in contact with somebody who had been recently hired at a regional airline so I can bend their ear a little too. Well, I have probably been rambling long enough. I can't even talk anymore. So I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you, Captain Jeff, for all that you do, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for sending in that audio feedback. It was great, and he also included a photo of him on the flight deck. And in this case, it's not a cockpit. It really is a flight deck on the top of an aircraft carrier with a bunch of, looks like intruders and maybe what are those, A7s? Whatever, a bunch of airplanes up there occupying space on the flight deck along with Mike when he was a young lad. And I'll include that in the show notes. Very, very cute picture. Nice picture. Thank you for telling us about your story, how you got involved in aviation and your present job, and what your goal is for the future. And as far as the specific question about what the washout rate is in new hire training, all I can say is that when I was a new hire more than 26 years ago, I don't recall hearing anybody getting washed out of the training. You know, we were all pretty qualified to begin with, as you are. I think that may have changed recently. I'm not sure if it differs between the majors and the regionals. I would imagine that, if anything, the washout rate might be a little bit higher with the regionals because many of the people applying and starting there have a lot less experience. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Maybe somebody listening out there in the APG community would have the exact stats and answer to that question. Again, it's one of those things that you just have to decide for yourself, Mike, and it sounds like you've been doing a lot of thinking about it. All the, the pros and cons of doing what you're doing right now, and you really enjoy it, as opposed to suffering that first year or two or however long it takes to fly in the regionals before you can get on with a major. And the hard working conditions and the low pay, etc. You're the one that has to determine whether or not it's going to be worth going through all that. But the nice thing is, it sounds like you have pre-planned this pretty well, and you have some backup plans as well. So again, great hearing from you. Always enjoy reading and listening to your feedback, and the best of luck, best wishes to you in your future endeavors. And please keep us in the loop And again, anybody out there listening who might be able to help Mike with some of the questions he has about new hire training, etc., please do not hesitate to send it to feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. And if need be, I'll even be a liaison between you and Mike if you want to take it further and get more personal. All right. Thank you, Mike. Let's move on with some more audio feedback. This time it's from Dylan in Sacramento. And actually, it's not him speaking. He said, "Hello, Captain Jeff. I saw this on liveatc.net today," and that was on the 1st. "And I thought I would share it with the Airline Pilot Guy community. UPS 36 was flying early Saturday morning when they saw a Delta II rocket launching from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. I really enjoy every episode of APG. Please keep up the great work." Dylan from Sacramento. So let's hear the transcript or the recording from liveatc.net of this UPS flight and the controlling agency.
Center, UPS 36.
UPS 36, go ahead.
Yeah, do you know if Vandenberg launched anything this morning?
They called me about an hour ago and said they were supposed to launch something right about now. Usually we have military aircraft that come out south of your position and observe a rocket launch, but I don't have anyone coming out yet.
Yeah, we're watching it. It's pretty cool.
Oh, so it did go. UPS 36?
Yeah, go ahead for UPS 36.
Yeah, right after you said that, they did call and say they launched it. You can see it pretty well, though?
Oh, it is pretty remarkable. I mean, it's about taking up about a foot in our windshield right now, and he's just leaving a big, huge contrail way up in the upper atmosphere. It's about a foot long and iridescent white.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes they launch them and they go all the way past Hawaii, and then they launch countermeasures off of Guam or the Marshall Islands down there to shoot them down.
So I think he just went through a stage because, yeah, it's impressive.
Nice, thanks.
As long as they don't miss and hit us, we're happy.
Okay. I have no idea how high it goes. I know the area that they blocked for it's above 60,000 feet and below. You know what? I don't know what kind of missile it was. I just know that it was launched off of Vandenberg down south by LA, and then it's supposed to, the warning area that they got blocked off for, it's off the coast of Mexico, so it's supposed to head south. Yeah, I'll check that out, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure, they just showed up this morning, they said there was going to be a missile launch. UPS 36, radar service is terminated, frequency change approved, have a safe flight.
UPS 36, thanks a lot, good morning.
So there you have it. They had a front seat view of the Delta II rocket launch from Vandenberg, and I have a feeling it was in the middle of the night, nice and dark, and then they could see the iridescent plume coming from the back of the rocket. Must have been an amazing sight. So thank you, Dylan from Sacramento, for sending that. Marshall Gruskin sent me a Facebook message, I believe, on the 29th of January. He said, "Well, Captain Jeff, after listening and actually watching your YouTube posts, we finally did it. Right next to the St. Pete Clearwater Airport, just about in front of runway 36 right. We just today opened Vapor, a premium craft beer experience. The offerings are posted on our Facebook page. If you're in the area, perhaps taking advantage of our #1 rated beaches, I, as they say in the trade, will be glad to hook you up. We'd love to have you stop in and try our beers on tap. On me, of course. Hoping all the nasty weather is not driving you crazy. We down here in Tampa Bay love all you do, and we look forward to seeing you in the future." So I hope to have the opportunity to take Mr. Gruskin up on that offer. That is cool. And I tried to do a little bit of research and to see if I can find out more information about this little, this place that Marshall opened up, and I sent him a message, but it looks like he has not responded yet. So hopefully, Marshall, send in some more information. I tried to find the place on Facebook. I couldn't, perhaps I was just doing a bad search. So, yeah, please let all of us know, especially those who are listening who happen to be living in the Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater area. I'm sure they'd, if they're of appropriate drinking age, would like to go over to your premium craft beer experience shop and enjoy the offerings. So thanks again for letting us know, and again, I'll let you know when I'm down there again. I'd love to share a beer or two. Also on Facebook, again, Airline Pilot Guy is my page, facebook.com/Airline Pilot Guy. By the way, that just reminds me of something, kind of a pet peeve I have. You hear people announce, maybe I've mentioned this before on the show, but they mention web addresses, and sometimes they'll say backslash. No. Never use a backslash in a web address. The only time that I recall ever using a backslash was when you were doing DOS command lines and doing a directory. What do they call that? The directory path or whatever to a certain folder or file. Then you would use a backslash. But all the other slashes out there, people, are forward slashes. So there's no need to say backslash or forward slash. Just say slash. That conveys the information necessary. Okay, I'll step down from my soapbox. Monier, I think, M-O-N-I-E-R, Monier Madison Huibera, I probably really butchered your name, I'm sorry, on Facebook wrote to me and said, Captain Jeff, I have a strange question. What is the preferred wristwatch and sunglasses among pilots? Does it come down to practicality or just personal preference? And I wrote him back and said, it seems that most pilots like those big aviation chronographs with the big knobs poking out of it and all kinds of dials, etc. I have smaller wrists, though, and those things just look cartoon ridiculous when I wear them. So I prefer my trusty Rolex stainless steel Oyster, which was given to me from my parents for my college graduation back in 1981. It's out of commission right now. I dropped it on the cement floor. I need to have it repaired, but I'm delaying as long as I can because I know it's going to be very expensive to get this thing fixed. Anyway, so now I'm wearing a very thin, SKAGN, a Danish watch, and I've heard it pronounced many different ways: Skagen, Skagen, and even Skane, which I think is actually the proper way to pronounce it in Danish, at least. So that's what I have right now. Just a regular watch. Doesn't have any fancy dials or other fancy functionality. It's just it's a watch, an analog watch. Sunglasses, I said. I don't think there is a standard there. Just whatever looks good and does the trick of protecting your eyes. And then he sent back, you mean like this? And it was a guy with these sunglasses that looked like they had like two hands covering up his eyes. And I said, yes, that's exactly the pair that I wear. So thank you, Monier, for your feedback. Daniel from Australia sent me some audio feedback, so let's hear what he has to say.
Hi Captain Jeff, it's Daniel here, calling from, or leaving a message from Australia. Like Randy, I drive a truck up and down the east coast of Australia, New South Wales. I drive a car carrier, and so I really enjoy your shows. The length is fine. 3 hours plus is fine by me. My one-way trip is about 9 hours, and I do 2 legs and 5 of those round trips every fortnight. So I do a lot of driving as well as studying. I'm studying to be a commercial pilot as well. So and have got a family of 3 kids, and so it's all happening. I'm all trying to make it all work like everyone else in this world. And yeah, so really just a quick shout out to all the APG community. I really love the input, the feedback, your comments. I've caught up with all your shows. I've just come back from holidays. Lucky enough to be able to go overseas and experience a few different places. And so I've been back a week, and I've already caught up to your shows. I've actually even downloaded a couple of your earlier episodes of The Catholic Pilot, which I'm finding really refreshing. I mean, they're only a half an hour to 45 minutes long, but they're really good. I'm really enjoying those first episodes, particularly where you carry a microphone with you. The one I just listened to now was one where you had a passenger in the back that wasn't feeling too well, and you had voice communications there with the flight attendant, and it really put me in the cockpit with you. I really think if you could incorporate that into one of your recent shows, that'd really be refreshing, I think. So lastly, because I am in a truck, I'd like to just contribute to, or maybe suggest a bumper for your new feedback, and let's see how we go. Captain, incoming message.
Yes.
There you go, Captain Jeff. Once again, enjoy your show. Thank you, and keep up the good work. Bye for now.
Awesome, Daniel. Okay, anybody out there who is also a truck driver, that you got to do that, just as Daniel did. That's tremendous. Thank you, Daniel, for that. So yeah, congratulations on your work toward becoming a pilot, and good luck with that. And let's see, he mentioned the Catholic Pilot episodes. That was the show that I used to do before. Well, it's actually really the show. When I started podcasting, my own podcast, aviation-related podcast, I called it The Catholic Pilot. But then I learned really, really quickly that nobody really cared much about the Catholic part of it. They were more concerned about, aviation, flying, airlines, that kind of thing. So I realized that maybe I should rethink the branding on this. And so I made the move about a year and a half after I started podcasting to rebrand the show The Airline Pilot Guy, kind of in a little bit of an homage to Leah Laporte. He is the tech guy. And I thought, well, I'm not the tech guy, I'm the airline pilot guy. I could have been the airline pilot answer man instead of the podcast answer man. But that's kind of what I do here, right? That's what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of the airline pilot answer man. Anyway, and that reminds me that I'm still in the process of re-uploading those episodes of the Catholic. I have about 40 of them, approximately. And so I need to remember to check to see how many of those I still have remaining that need to be re-uploaded, because I accidentally deleted all of them. And so hopefully I'll have that finished sometime in the near future. And then the comment about the microphone in the cockpit, I do remember that episode, that incident where I think I had my H2 recorder at the time, and I just kind of turned it on just to kind of capture what was happening and kind of give you a feel for what it's like when you're flying along, and then you get the call from somebody that somebody is having some kind of a medical issue in the back. And I really would love to do more of that. I really would. I've even purchased a cable that would allow me to tap into the communication system and record conversations and that sort of thing. But I'm still trying to work out exactly what I'm legally allowed to do and what I'm not. And right now I'm just playing it safe because I don't want to break any of the rules for my company, and I don't want to get in trouble. I want to continue to collect a paycheck every 2 weeks or so. So until I can sort all that out and get, some kind of an assurance from somebody that is, has the authorization to do so, that it is okay for me to, make recordings while I'm flying, I'm just going to kind of stay away from that because, again, I love this job too much to compromise it in any way. So, all right. Thank you again, Daniel, for your feedback. And Rick, in reference to the AirAsia 8501 information about the captain pulling the circuit breaker on the flight augmentation computer, he said, no, or oh no, since when is it acceptable to reset any circuit breaker in flight? And I think in most cases, and I think it depends, Rick, on the airplane, it depends on the airline and what the procedures are. I think that maybe in years past it wasn't such a big deal, but nowadays, when with our more modern advanced avionics, etc., pulling circuit breakers is not something that you do unless it's directed by your quick reference handbook, or your abnormal or emergency procedure requires that you do it. But doing it as it's alleged that this captain did, again, unless it was part of a procedure, a formal procedure, he probably should not have done that. So again, I don't know what the rules are at your company, what your ops manual says, but only in very, very certain circumstances are we allowed to reset a circuit breaker, and it depends on what the procedure is, what the device is. Definitely don't want to do it with any of the high amperage breakers, like fuel boost pumps and hydraulic pumps, that kind of thing. Ryan sent first time audio feedback. He said, here it is. Hope it's good. Okay, let's hear it.
G'day, Captain Jeff. It's Ryan here from Australia. I haven't sent you feedback for a while because I've been travelling around Europe. This is also my first time sending you audio feedback with my new microphone, so hopefully it sounds alright.
Sounds great.
Anyway, while I was travelling around Europe, I had several 3-hour train journeys, so your podcasts were very good to listen to then, and now I'm all caught up and back at home again. I decided to send you some feedback. While I was in Europe, I spent half a day at the Zurich airport spotting area. It's right on top of Dock B and it's outdoors. You can see all of the Dock B gates, half of the Dock A gates. You've got a really good view onto the 3-4 threshold, taxiways, Echo and Foxtrot, and you can catch a couple of departures off runway 28 as well, which is really good. I've sent you a couple of pictures which I took from the spotting area. Just before I explain what's in the pictures, I should mention that I was at the spotting area during the World Economic Forum, which was held in Davos, Switzerland, so there were quite a few private jets and government aircraft inbound Zurich on that day. So the first picture is of an Austrian registered 737 BBJ. The second picture is of a Cayman Islands registered A319 ACJ. In the background you can see two other ACJs, one from Turkey and one from the Ukraine. Behind them you can see an Air China 747. Just to the right of the 747 you can see a couple of Falcons, Challenger 604, and a bit more to the right you can see a few Gulfstreams. The third and fourth picture I've sent is of two different Helvetic Airways Fokker 100s, which I believe Andre flies, who you met in Atlanta a few months ago. So maybe that was him flying those on the day I was there.
Could be.
Anyway, that's it from me for this time, so keep your CDI centered, and I'll talk to you soon.
I will keep my CDI centered, and thank you for the pictures. I'll put those in the show notes so the APG community can look at them as well. Beautiful. Looked like a pretty nice day there in Zurich. Flughafen Zurich. And microphone sounds great, Ryan. So keep up the audio feedback. It's wonderful. All right. And was there anything else I was going to say? No, I don't think so. Okay, continuing. We have some more audio feedback. And this is from, well, he'll probably say, hang on. Wow. Okay, we're going to do that again.
Well, hello Captain Jeff, it's Carlos here from the Plane Talking UK podcast. Just sending you some voice feedback from my seat 28F on Thomson Boeing 737-800. We're currently just coming over the English Channel, just coming up to our cruise height of 37,000 feet. And from my window seat, I'm looking out across the wing at a very gorgeous scimitar winglet. That's the sort of double-edged winglet that Boeing have fitted on a lot of the new next-gen 737s. Fantastic view from my window at the moment, looking out over a very sunny blue sky with a lot of cloud below us, which we're leaving behind in the UK. Just thought I'd send you some voice feedback. Just listen to episode 153 of the Airline Pilot Guy show, and loved the shout out you gave us on your show, and Pip as well. And thanks for that. It's always very nice to hear our voices being mentioned on such a prestigious podcast like your own. So as I said, we're at 37,000 feet cruising, and we're on a 2-year-old Boeing 737-800, one of Thomson's newer aircraft, and a bit of a choppy takeoff from London Luton Airport. A bit choppy due to the weather. We had a slight bit of sleet, and temperature was hovering around the 2 degrees mark, which is rather chilly. So we're heading to Lanzarote, the island of Lanzarote, which is in the Canary Islands in the Mediterranean, just for 2 weeks of summer sun. I'm going to try and get this sent out to you so you can put it in your next show, hopefully. And we're hopefully I'll be downloading your latest show next week via iTunes. So once again, Jeff, thanks again for producing a fantastic show. I've got a couple of episodes of yours to listen to on my iPod whilst I'm on holiday. So if you feel up to it, perhaps you can produce 3 or 4 episodes this week for me to download. That'd be awesome. Anyway, I'm going to let you get back to your show. And once again, thank you for mentioning us in your episode, and look forward to having you on one of our shows again, hopefully as a guest in the not too distant future. So from me, Carlos, from the Plane Talking UK podcast, I'm going to bid you a sunny farewell from 37,000 feet. Take care, Jeff, and God bless.
Thank you, Carlos, for also known as Carl Stebbings. Again, the podcast that he is a host on is Plane Talking UK, and you can find that at planetalkinguk.com. And I neglected to mention a co-host that joined the show in November of last year, Matt Smith. He is their executive producer and co-host on the show. And I also mentioned Simon. So Carlos, Matt, and Simon do a bang-up job of presenting information to folks interested in aviation and, of course, the air show circuit, etc., which is coming up, I guess, pretty soon. And their tagline says, Plane Talking UK Podcast, the UK podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And again, as I mentioned on the last episode, Carlos is not only going to be a passenger, he's going to be a pilot very, very soon. Hopefully that's going well. He also writes, when he sent me this feedback, that he and Matt are going to attempt to record a show or two, as I don't fly home until the 15th of February, which is 10 days from now. So he's brought with him a mini studio. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. So check out their podcast, planetalkinguk.com. And Janelle sent this. I'm trying to remember what. Oh, okay. She said, hey, did you see that you're ranked #1 in the aviation section? Pretty cool. You finally beat out Jody Owen's old show. She sent me a screenshot of this. Of course, if you look at it right now, it may not be in the #1 slot. It just happened to be so when she was looking at it and took this little screen grab. Let's see, at that moment in time, I was #1. The UAV Digest was next, the Pilot Cast. #4, Betty in the Sky with a Suitcase. And #5, who is still there even though he stopped podcasting years and years ago. And I don't understand why his podcast continues to be up in the this high in the standings. But it was a good podcast. Fly With Me by Joe Dion. I don't know what he's doing out there lately, but anyway, so that's interesting. So thanks, Janelle, for the shout out. Michael C. from Tennessee. Oh, that rhymes. Michael C. from Tennessee. He said, "Not such a bad delay. Captain Jeff, here is a link to a story/video that made me smile. Not all flight delays are bad. I'm sure you'll enjoy this style of music." And so he sent me a link. I'll have the link in the show notes, but a little bit of the audio from it is coming right at you right now.
Now in the park you hear the happy song of the carousel. You can almost taste the hot dogs and french fries they sell. Under the boardwalk, down by the sea, yeah. On a blanket with my baby is where I'll be. Under the boardwalk of the sun, under the boardwalk, really having some fun under the boardwalk, walking about.
And the name of that group, it's obviously a barbershop quartet, Port City Sound. And now I need to contact them and get them to sing the Java Jive. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, so somebody taking a video with their cell phone in an airplane cabin, which is stuck on the ground with some kind of delay. It looks like some kind of a smaller airplane, some kind of a regional jet, kind of a 2-and-2 seating configuration. And these guys are sitting in a couple rows, and they're what's the word? They are serenading the passengers while they wait on the tarmac. So thank you, Michael C. from Tennessee, for sending that to us. And again, that'll be in the show notes. Nicholas sent some audio feedback. He called the airline pilot guy Google Voice feedback line. And that is, boy, I've already forgotten now what is it? Oh, let's see, 304-99-PILOT, 304-997-4568, I think. That'll be in the show notes and on the website. But anyway, he called that number, and the audio quality is not really great with Google Voice, but hey, it's free. I can't complain. So here we go.
Hi, Jeff. It's Nicholas, Knickknacks Tech, and I wanted to ask you a question. Not many. One is about the glass pocket that you were talking about getting in your aircraft. I was just wondering if that has happened yet. And the other question was about the CDU style that you guys use. I'm wondering if it's similar to the one on the MD-11 / the Airbus, or if it's more the Boeing style, or if it even has an CDU at all. Thanks, Jeff. Please keep it up, and happy landings. Bye.
Yes, of course we have a CDU, a control display unit. For some reason we call it the MCDU on the airplane that I fly, the multifunction control display unit. And that's basically the interface that we have with the flight management system, the flight management computers. And that's how we enter our route and our altitudes, performance data, all kinds of stuff like that. And that's how we interface with our navigation system and all that kind of jazz. And yeah, it's very similar to the one on the MD-11. I don't know if it's identical, but very similar. I'm sure if you did a Google search for MCDU or CDU and MD-88, MD-90, or MD-80, you will see a picture of it on Google. And yeah, it has all the, the line select buttons on the outer edges of the small display. It's a text display. It's not a graphic display. And a keypad with numbers and alpha characters, as well as other functions. And so when we're flying, we're cruising and we want to move to a different altitude. We put that altitude in the altitude alert window, but we also enter it into the flight management computer via the CDU or the MCDU, and then we execute it, and then we sit back and watch the airplane climb or descend to that new altitude. We use it for all kinds of things. So yes, we do have a CDU. And the first part of your question, you were asking about the cockpit upgrade, and as I mentioned on previous shows, that whole thing has kind of been put on a permanent hold. I'm not sure what the disposition will be in the future, if they're going to try to do some kind of an advanced cockpit display upgrade, or if they're just going to leave the good old stuff that's worked for so many years and continues to help us build our instrument cross-check. So we'll have to see. Thanks, Knick-Knack Jack, for sending some audio feedback. And Tyler writes, actually he sent me some feedback. Let's hear from Tyler and what he has to say.
Hey, Captain Jeff. It's Tyler, the flight attendant. Just wanted to give you some feedback. Was listening to episode 153, and one of your listeners had sent in some feedback talking about the United incident with the flight attendants that decided not to fly. And it just made me think of something that's kind of been on my mind for a little bit now is, Jack said something along the lines is we can't take everything in the airline industry so seriously. And I don't know if that's the exact point that he was getting at, and whether or not it was, that's kind of not the point. It's more of something that I had been thinking about before. It just reminded me of it. And my point is, regardless of what we think happened, we weren't there. So, we know sort of what the media has portrayed to us, or what even United has said, releasing a statement about it, but we weren't there. And I think that they were kind of in the right. They should at least be a little bit concerned. I truly, honestly believe that over the past 14 or however long it's been, 14 years since 9/11, that there has been some sort of almost complacency that's been going on in the airline industry regarding, these types of threats, and I think a lot of people, whether you think it's been blown out of proportion or not, whether you think the flight attendants were right or not, like I said before, that's really not the point. It's not our job to decide whether they're right or wrong. Our job is to ensure the safety of this industry that we all love. So, if somebody comes to me as a flight attendant with a threat, or with their concerns of a threat, whether I think they're totally out of the line or not, it's not my job to decide if they're totally out of the line. My job is to investigate, to make sure that everything's okay, and to report it to the necessary people, So, point in cases, I'm not coming after you, Jack. I'm not saying what you said was wrong. It just reminded me of an interesting trend that I've been seeing in the industry today, that complacency is kind of running wild. You see bags just left in the airport and TSA personnel walking by them like nothing's wrong, or police walking by them like nothing's wrong, and just unattended luggage and things that we were all so concerned about in the beginning. Now that the kind of hype, quote unquote, has died down when it comes to all these terrorist issues and things, people tend to just go about their everyday lives and not think about the problem at hand, which is safety and security at all times. So anyways, I just thought it was an interesting topic. And, Jack, I thank you for your point of view. And Captain Jeff, I thank you for letting me express my point of view. But, let's just remember to stay safe. Everyone out there who's involved in this industry, whether it's from general aviation all the way up to, commercial aviation, let's just stay safe out there, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your perspective, Tyler. And yeah, I would agree. I think it's just human nature. You know, we're the further we get removed from the events of September 11th, 2001, the more we kind of just get complacent and take for granted, you know, our safety and freedoms, etc. As far as the particular incident with the United flight attendants, I mean, they were. It wasn't like they just expressed their concerns and then the company, the pilots, the maintenance people said, forget it, you know, just keep doing your job and shut up. I mean, they did a full inspection. They tried to reassure them that it was a safe airplane and they could fly, you know, complete the flight safely. Excuse me. So when they all decided to just say, nope, we're not doing it. Again, I'm not sure that was the right thing to do. But if they were genuinely concerned for their safety and really thought it was a legitimate terrorist threat, well, then that's more important than keeping a job, I guess. But as far as firing them, I think that was a little bit too severe punishment. I really do. So I agree with you there. So again, I sort of agree with you. Not that they didn't do anything wrong, but that perhaps the punishment didn't fit the crime, perhaps. But your general point, your overall point is very well taken. I believe you are correct to say that we have become very complacent and removed from this ever-present danger and threat that we live in this world today. Just recently, I don't know if you saw the horrific video or pictures of the Jordanian pilot who was shot down and crashed over some of the area, the territory held by by ISIL or ISIS or whatever you want to call it, the Islamic State, the radicals out there causing problems in Syria, in Iraq, and other parts of the Middle East there, and the horrendous. It's just horrifying the way that they killed that pilot, that human being, by burning him alive. It was just makes my stomach hurt just thinking about it. This is going on right now, people. You know, there are parts of the world that are experiencing all kinds of problems and terrorism and everything else, and it doesn't really take a huge step to move that from where it's taking place right now to where we all live right now. So I think, again, point well taken, Tyler. We should probably start paying a little bit more attention to what is going on around us, suspicious packages, that kind of thing, because we don't want to get caught with our pants down as we did on September 11th, 2001. So, yeah, it kind of feels like right now we're at September 10th. Like we had no idea something horrible like that could happen. And it could. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen tonight. So thank you for giving us your feedback on that, Tyler. Always welcomed. Let's see. This is from Dispatch Greg. And some information about the ringtone stuff. So let's hear what he has to say.
Hi, Captain Jeff. This is Dispatch Greg from Chicago. Hey, how's it going? Actually, I'm calling regarding some feedback that Vernon left. I believe it was in episode 153 regarding the ringtone that he's looking for to the flight attendant call bell, the fasten the seatbelt or whatnot. So I do have an Android device, and it's funny because I actually have that for my ringtone for my text messages. So anyway, Vernon, if you go, the easiest way to do it is if you go to the Google Play Store and you download an app called Zedge. That's spelled Z's in Zulu, Echo, Delta, Golf, Echo, Zedge. You download that app. It's a free app that you can download that'll that lets you download like free ringtones. So you go in there, download Zedge, and then once you get in there, you can do a search for different ringtones and type in, I believe it's called Fasten Seatbelt. You know, but you can go and preview it before you download it, and they're all free. So go there and listen to it and see if that's what you want. And then you download it, and you can make it your default ringtone, your default tone, or you know, whatever you want to do with it. But there's a lot of neat stuff on there. Different airplane sounds you can download. There's one of a jet engine. There's another one that has the like a captain talking, if that's what you want. But anyway, thought that might be helpful. It's just something to play with. Again, Zedge is the name of the app on the Google Play Store. So that's about it. Captain Jeff, thanks again for the show. You passed the 150 milestone. We're almost get up to 200. We'll get there soon, right? Driving here in Chicago in a blizzard. It's we're supposed to get 12 to 15 inches here of snow, and O'Hare is a complete disaster today. So I'm hoping when I come into work later tonight that that everything is pretty much going to be canceled, because I don't know how we're going to operate today. Anyway, just thought I'd point that out. So if you have any questions, you know, just shoot an email, and have a good day.
All right, thank you for your suggestion for Vernon. So check out Zedge. I'll have, well, he didn't actually give me a link to that. Well, if I remember, I'll try to put the link to that in the show notes, Vernon. And before I move on to Jorge, who also has some ringtone help, that just reminded me, let's see, Thursday, you sent this, I think, on the 3rd or the 2nd. So I was in Chicago, or flew up to Chicago O'Hare on Monday midday, and boy, you're right, it was a mess. The snow had stopped, but I guess they had received about 19 inches or so at the airport there, and our operation was completely messed up because about half of the morning shift didn't show up for work, and then they canceled a bunch of flights out of O'Hare to New York. Acme did. So they had those airplanes still on the gate, but nobody there to move them off the gate. So all the airplanes coming in couldn't use those gates. So we had I think there was an airplane earlier in the day on Monday before I got there that landed, and it was on the tarmac for about 2 hours before they finally pulled up to the gate. And because of that, the flight right before ours was canceled, and then our flight was delayed for another hour or so to kind of allow the people to come in for the afternoon shift and to kind of, you know, move airplanes off a gate so that we'd have a gate available when we arrived. And it worked out well. We got everybody there about an hour late, but at least we didn't have to wait. Once we were on the ground there, we moved right into our gate. Now, it took a while from the time we landed to the time we actually arrived at the gate, because the airport was not in very good condition at all. All the vehicles and equipment out there were, you know, making sure that the runways were usable, and some of the taxiways were usable. But let me tell you, that it was slick. And in fact, there was a small super tug moving a regional jet in front of us, and then they got stuck in the snow. There were some places where the snow was pretty thick, and I was having to kind of move to a little bit of left of center line and right of center line to try to keep our tires as much as I could out of the really heavy snow. It was slippery. It was just nasty. And then on Wednesday, which was yesterday, we flew up to Grand Rapids, and again they had some pretty slick conditions there as well. They received a lot of snow as well. So getting my fill of winter weather, at least winter conditions at airports so far. So thank you, Dispatch Greg, for that information. And as I mentioned, Jorge, he's the one that actually sent those ringtones to me, and I made available on whatever episode that was. I don't recall now. I think I gave a link to my Dropbox for you to download those ringtones, those ringtone files. I think that's what I did, or maybe I put them on our server. I'm not sure. But anyway, he says, "Hello, Captain Jeff. I was listening to Vernon about the ringtones. I think you can find the answer here." And he has a link to a lifehacker.com article, how to turn any song into a ringtone for your phone or Android for free. And he said, I think I sent you the M4R files, and you did, I just checked that. But if he needs either MP3 or WAV files, I can send them to you, so you can send them to him, or I can send them directly to him if you provide me with his email address, whatever works for you. So again, our Airline Pilot Guy community working together to try to fix things for Vernon so he can get some of those really cool ringtones on his device. So I hope that helps, Vernon. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Dispatch Greg, and anybody else who has sent in some helpful hints about how to get the ringtones on your phone. You know, it should just be an easy thing, shouldn't it? But sometimes it isn't. All right. Okay, now back on episode, what episode was it? 150? The one where Dr. Steph and I were a captain and first officer crew together. She was my co-host. We were reading some feedback sent in from Dave in Toronto, and he had a snapshot of some rocking chairs at an airport. You remember that? And kind of we had a little contest, and so she sent me some more information about the rocking chairs. And she says, kind of embarrassing that I couldn't recognize my hometown airport. Oh well, my excuse is that I rarely venture into the B and C concourses here at CLT, since I mostly fly out of Concourse A, where Acme and a few other airlines gates are located. Anyway, I began wondering whether I hallucinated seeing and sitting in rocking chairs at PHL, Philadelphia, during the time I lived in that area. So I did a quick Google search and found these images that purport to be from the Philadelphia airport. Looks awfully similar to the Charlotte rocking chairs to me. No moving sidewalk, though. So she said, I'll be back in the airport in March, so I'll keep my eyes open for the rocking chairs. I've seen them there. Yes, Steph, I have. So she sent me some images from various sources about the chairs. And then did she send me one more in? I'm trying to... Well, anyway, I did a little bit more research on the rocking chairs, and she may have sent me another piece of feedback regarding it and about the company that seems to be providing a majority of the rocking chairs for airports all around our country. So I thought that was interesting. And I think it's a shop in North Carolina somewhere. Okay. Let's see. Tom writes, here's an article I found interesting, as I've always been a numbers guy. This is Tom Seagraves. When it comes to running a business. This gives a great snapshot of the major airlines. Maybe the other folks in the APG community will find it interesting as well. And so he sent me this link from opsshots.net, and it has all kinds of interesting data about available seat miles and revenue seat miles and all kinds of breakdowns of numbers regarded to the way airlines kind of run their business as far as making money or losing it. And so again, thank you, Tom, for the link, and you all know the deal, right, in the show notes. And let's see, we already talked about the TransAsia flight crash, and Matty Fab wrote in just a really quick question about the engines on the 90s. I was watching some videos on YouTube of some of your Acme Mad Dogs taking off, and one thing that struck me was the amount of time it took for when the engines are stabilized to the time it appears to get to full power, full takeoff setting power. They seem to be spooling up for 5 to 6 seconds or so, whereas on videos of other planes, they only take a couple of seconds or so. Is this a trait of the MD engines, or am I just imagining this? Keep the great podcasts coming. All the best. Excuse me. Yeah, it's the fuel control units on the Pratt & Whitneys that we use on the MD-80 series and the... why do I always have trouble remembering the name of the manufacturer? International Aero Engines. The high bypass fans that we use on the MD-90s. The fuel control units are just super slow. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they're trying to save wear and tear on the engines, or, you know, trying to make them last longer or whatever. But I know, you know, I basically had the same engine on the 727, the Pratt & Whitney. A little bit different version of it, but it's the same engine essentially. And those are mechanical fuel control units. And when I put the throttles up, I mean, that engine went, vroom, you know, it was there. The fuel control unit on the MD-80 series that we fly is like, you put the throttles up and it goes, oh, do you want some power? Oh, okay, well, hang on. Okay, here it comes. Okay, we're starting to spool now. Okay, there we go. And then finally, you know, it's up to speed. It's just, when I was in the simulator, I thought, well, this can't really be what the airplane's like. But it is. Now, I would say that the IAE 2500s that we have on the MD-90s, the fuel control units on that, those are FADEC, but the fuel control units specific to those engines actually respond a little bit faster than the Pratt & Whitneys do. But, yeah, I know what you mean, Matty Fab. I don't know why. Maybe a mechanic out there could give us an answer. You know, why specifically for the Mad Dogs does it seem that these engines take so long to spool? Or maybe the pilots are just slower to put the power on or something. I don't know. Okay, Tim Van Ram sent me a link to an article called Opulence Galore, from Trump's $100 million 757 to Oprah's luxurious interiors and Tom's Top Gun G4 inside the private jets of the rich and famous, including a private, get this, a private Airbus 380, which is in the article, and I believe it's from Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Al Saud. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right or not. I'm sure I didn't. Anyway, a Saudi prince has a private Airbus A380. Wow. Talking about opulence. So check out the article and the pictures included. Again, the link will be in the show notes. And let's see. I think that, it's just a little over 2 hours. You know what? I was going to save this for the next show, but I saw this. I receive, when you leave a comment on Facebook, if you leave a comment on the website, if you leave a comment just about anywhere, including YouTube, even on a video that I may have recorded quite some time ago. I think this was episode 103. I got an email notification that somebody had left me a comment there. And this is a very long one, by the way. And this is from Brandon. And let me read this to you. He says, "Hey, Jeff, just found your show /podcast. My name is Brandon, and I'm a private pilot from Texas. I'm 23 years old, and my sister is 22, and she also has her private pilot license. My dad is ex-U.S. Air Force and a current captain for American Airlines on the 737-8. He's also an FFDO, a Federal Flight Deck Officer with Homeland Security. He has flown everything from the B-707 to the Boeing 777. He's nearing retirement. American Airlines VP of Flight Ops John Hale went to school with my dad, so he's getting up there in age, sadly. And our goal is to become airline pilots and hopefully be able to fly with him on his last flight. Whatever equipment we get, assuming everything works out and we fly for American Airlines, he will transition to. That's cool. Anyway, if it all works out, the time frame is narrow, but it would be cool to have father, son, and daughter on the flight deck. Not sure if that's been done before." Yeah, I'm not sure either, Brandon. Anyways, Jeff, heard you talk about the pilot shortage and have read comments about how they don't agree with it. That is fine. We all have our own opinions. However, my dad just showed my sister and I some stuff. I won't tell everything. And within the paperwork he showed us, it showed how many pilots were retiring, how many new airplanes American is getting, 900 brand new plus with the unique option for more, and how many planes were being retired and how many pilots were being hired, etc. Let's look at the planes being added without factoring in the retirees. Shows to be a pretty big shortage. If you factor in the retiring pilots, that number grows substantially. I know a lot of pilots, military, airline, private, CFIs, etc. Many of them say that the shortage is real, and I believe them. I know that one of the local flight schools recently sold some of their airplanes because they just sit in the corner of a hangar. CFIs are now having to get other jobs to make money, as the number of students are far less now that they have instituted the 1,500-hour rule. Now, that's just here locally, but in today's economy, the costs of flight training is pricey, and most people still have college loans to pay for. To the ones that said the PS is BS, here's some food for thought. Just because an airline or company might need to fill a lot of positions quickly does not mean that they have to hire the first schmuck that comes their way. Not calling anybody names. Let's see, I'm not calling anyone any names, but just saying. They are hiring, but one thing to keep in mind is furloughed pilots have priority over a nobody like ourselves. Once the furloughs are processed, I bet that you'll see more noticeable movement. The airlines still have a job to do, and that is to hire the best pilots possible. Also, in case it has not been mentioned, in aviation especially, it's not necessarily what you know, but whom you know. My dad's best man is a recently retired U.S. Air Force full bird colonel. He knows a lot of people and sat on the hiring board at Warner Robins in Georgia. American Airlines has several U.S. Air Force generals, and my dad is buddies with a 2-star. Anyways, the reserves or Air National Guard are a great option. You get a lot of benefits. You get to serve your country. Go USA. And you get paid to train on jets, turboprops, and you get your instrument, multi-engine, commercial, etc. when you go through pilot training. You just really need to have about 100 hours and hold a private pilot's license, current medical, college degree, and meet their requirements. The major benefit of joining the U.S. Air Force as an officer is that now you only have to have 750 flight hours to go to the airlines. First year as a commissioned second lieutenant officer, you make, at the 2015 current pay scale, $48,000 plus, which a lot of it is tax-free. Yeah, there are a lot more benefits as well. So that $48,000 that he's talking about right here really is a lot more, effectively. Okay, so continuing with Brandon's feedback. Well, you can clearly see that this is the best way to go. You make nearly $50,000 a year, continue to build time in jets, and now you have a fighting chance with an airline. As a U.S. Air Force Reserve or Air National Guard pilot, you work 1 or 2 weekends a month, or as much as you want, and can still fly with an airline. Back to the papers my dad showed us. For 2018, new hires' projected annual income is $98,000, and that is on a restricted pay scale for the first couple of years. Each year it increases until your restricted pay is lifted, and it really gets up there. So follow along now. You're a captain in the U.S. Air Force, making $60,000 to $70,000 plus for a part-time flying job. You make nearly $100,000 with the airlines, and you still have some time off to do other investments and things with your time and money. I will also mention that my dad talked to John Hale and was told that in their new hiring classes, they will fill them up and another airline will sneak in behind American Airlines and pay more for American Airlines new hires. Don't waste your time on a regional carrier. Join the U.S. Air Force, fly half the time you need, get on with the big boys, and if you plan to fly for 20 to 30 years, it makes sense just to stick with the U.S. Air Force for 20 years to get a retirement pension, meaning that they pay you a few $1,000s a month every month you're alive for the rest of your life once you're 60. You guys are going about this all wrong. He's talking to the other people that have made comments in some of my videos. It doesn't have to be this hard. I'm not saying that my situation is easy, but it is certainly the more wise route. Hope this helps, Jeff, and all who read, listen, and watch your show. Best of luck, Brandon. So, Brandon, thank you for taking the time to type all that out. But I think it's very helpful. And again, I've mentioned it many times in the past that I highly recommend someone out there who is young, as you are, or even younger, who are thinking about getting into the airlines and don't have any kind of a reason or a desire not to be in the military. The military route is a really, that was the route that I took. I wish I'd known about the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard. I would have gotten to Acme a couple years before I did, and I would have been even more senior than I am now. But I didn't know until I got to the U.S. Air Force Officer Training School in San Antonio back in 1981, where I met my best friend and said, "So what is it that you do?" And he said he was in an Air Force Reserve unit. And I went, "Ooh," and he explained that he'll be able to get on with the airlines as soon as he has the qualifications, and he can continue to do his commitment in the reserve unit, etc. And I thought, "Ooh, yeah, that's what I want to do." And he goes, "Too late, jerk." He said, you're active duty now. So if you go the active duty route, which is definitely something to consider as well, I think the commitment now is like 10 years after you get your wings. So that's at least another year. So, you're about 11 years plus into it by the time you serve your initial commitment. And you're just right about, you're just over the hump there for that 20-year retirement pension and all that kind of stuff. So, but, it's another way to go. But I agree with you, Brandon. As opposed to, not getting paid very much and kind of leading some would consider a miserable life trying to work up, get those hours, that flying time, and then get a job with a regional and then get a job with a major. Instead, getting into the military, they're paying you pretty decent money and training you. You're not paying for it, and getting a lot of great experience. So there are a lot of advantages to doing that route. Is it easy to get into an Air National Guard, Air Reserve unit these days? I don't know. Some people say it's not that hard. Some people say, well, you gotta kind of have to know somebody. I don't know if that's true. I know I have a lot of people listening, watching the show, that have suggested that it's definitely doable, and so definitely worth considering. If you're listening to my words right now and Brandon's, take a look at that. That might be the way to go if you want to do this for a living. So that is it. Again, airlinepilotguy.com is the place to go to join the APG community, to look at previous shows, to learn how to listen to the show in other ways, download or subscribe via iTunes. By the way, thank you to all of you who continue to subscribe to the show and leave reviews on iTunes. I really appreciate that. It really makes a difference. And to those of you who not only support me by listening and subscribing and sending in feedback, but even, give me a tip, in my tip jar per episode. That's fantastic. Gives me the motivation to keep this thing going. So again, all that information is there on airlinepilotguy.com. And until next time, sometime next week, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Good day.